I'm Kara here with Stu. Say hey, Stu.
Hey, Stu.
So we are back. I know you guys are surprised. There's another episode that's coming out. But we promise we're trying to do better. Anyways, something I forgot to mention last episode was that Jinxie is still alive. This is true, folks. If you remember, 3 years ago, Jinxie had a major health issue and he had to go to the special vet and all this stuff, everything. Anyways, he's still chugging along.
Would you say it was a catastrophe?
It was a catastrophe. It was a major catastrophe. But I just thought I'd mention that because maybe one or two of you care if Jinxie's still alive, but he is still alive.
Well, yes, plenty of people did care, and they did donate to Jinxie's cause, and he is still here, alive and kicking, and well. Yeah,
he just has to have an inhaler twice a day. It's pretty funny.
Yes, we give him an asthma inhaler twice a day.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he just runs around acting like a crazy normal cat all the time.
Yeah, I'll have to post a picture update with Jinxie picture and stuff like that. But enough about that. So we are back and we are going to Oklahoma this episode. Are you excited, Stu?
I am terribly excited.
About an Oklahoma episode?
That's where it all started for this podcast, was up in Oklahoma.
It did, with the Girl Scout murders. Yep, that was... That's a memory.
Yes, when you got me roped into doing this podcast to begin with.
Yep, but... All right, so we are going to Oklahoma. Susan Hamilton née Shibley was born January 5th, 1946 in Sapulpa, Oklahoma to Camille and Louise Shibley. Stu was wondering about how to pronounce that, but I'm actually, if any of you remember, I think I've mentioned it, I was born in Oklahoma, and so I know how it's Sapulpa. Stu, Sapulpa.
Why, thank you for that spelling.
Now, any Louisiana names, I cannot mispronounce those terribly.
You do.
Yep. All right. Back to the case. So Susan's father, Camille, he was from Lebanon and immigrated to the U.S. as a child. He joined the Army and served in World War II, even earning a Purple Heart. He married Louise from Missouri, as some say, in 1942 and settled in Sapulpa, where he made a living in the restaurant business. Have we determined, is Missouri, is it part of the South or not? We had that whole discussion, didn't we?
It's been a back and forth issue.
I think we polled everybody or put it on Facebook or something, and we determined that Missouri is part of the South. Why are you shaking your head at me?
I think you were incorrect, ma'am, but okay.
Okay.
I don't think we polled anybody.
Okay, we didn't poll it. Maybe we didn't poll anybody, but maybe Missouri is part of the South. I feel like it is. I feel like they can be honorary Southerners. Some people say Texas isn't part of the South. Did you know that?
You got to talk about whether you're talking about Old South or New South.
Or Florida, I mean.
Well, that was Spanish territory forever and a day, so.
Anyways. Sidetrack again. But, so they started making a living in the restaurant industry. Susan grew up as one of 5 children, all boys except Susan. Susan was described as smart, beautiful, and vivacious. She grew up tough, being the only girl. I have 3 older brothers, so yeah, you gotta be tough because they're always trying to run everything. Santa, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy.
Not brothers.
Yeah, your face. Everything. Now, Susan had always dreamed of being a mother. That dream would come true when she met her first husband, Richard Dick Horton. Why is it okay for men, like Dick short for Richard? Why is that? You don't see a bunch of women walking around being called pussy.
Pussy galore.
She's from someplace else though, right?
007.
She's from, that explains it. I don't even like the P word. I think it's like gross sounding. I don't know.
It's better than the C word, ain't it?
Yeah, it's not the best. Anyways, Richard Dick Horton. So Susan married Dick, and together they would have 2 children. But the marriage would not last. Now, in 1985, Susan would meet another man. His name was Dr. John Hamilton. He was an OBGYN in Oklahoma City, and she was 39 and he was 37. So she's robbing the cradle there with the younger man.
The old cougar.
Yep. John was head over heels for Susan soon after meeting. She was perfect in his eyes. She was beautiful. She was the exact type of woman you would expect to be married to a doctor. We all know, let's be honest, we all know the type. You know, athletic, pretty, well-mannered, well-behaved.
In public, anyway.
In public, anyways. It takes a special person to be married to a doctor. It really does, because they really are married to the job first. They're on, like, he's an OBGYN, so he's going and deliver babies. Like, babies come when they want to come. They have to leave and do things. So first and foremost, they're doctors, and then their husbands, fathers, etc. Stu's shaking his head at me because I said etc.
Yes.
It's etc., I guess.
Well, it's espresso. Yeah.
No, at least I didn't say espresso. Etc. I'm assuming. I'm not married to a doctor, so I don't know. But that's just what I hear, is it takes a special person to be married to a doctor because they're married to the job first. That's what I hear. At least what Bravo TV tells me.
Well, unless you're a cosmetic surgeon. I guess you don't get a call in the middle of the night for some Botox emergency.
Well, they do have to be, I think part of their credentials or whatever to keep them up to date, they have to be on call for any type of trauma. Specific days of the week, they have to be on call for any trauma type surgeries like that, or plastic surgeon wouldn't be needed.
Like someone wasn't happy with their nose and went to the emergency room?
No, like if someone were in a wreck and they needed an emergency, like, I don't know, removing a limb. I don't know what plastic surgeon does. I just heard. I'm getting most of my info from Bravo TV. Okay.
Well, there's your first mistake.
No, they would never lead me astray. Now, John had been married before and also had 2 children. They would marry in 1987 at Quail Creek Country Club in Oklahoma City. You know they fancy if they're getting married at the country clubs, do.
Mm-hmm. At the Quail Creek.
Members only. Members only jackets were probably worn. It was 1987 as well.
I used to have one.
Really?
I did.
Were you the only member?
I was not the only member.
John enjoyed spoiling Susan, even buying her a Porsche on the day they wed. Fancy. Susan and John lived a very privileged life that was afforded to them through John's practice. In 1980, John had purchased the Oklahoma City Clinic for Women, where he practiced obstetrics. Man, I sound like a real dumbass tonight. Obstetrics and gynecology. OBGYN shit, okay? That's why they just call it that. But the clinic was controversial. John also performed abortions there in a very conservative Oklahoma. He was not a stranger to death threats or threats upon the clinic, and protests would be frequented outside of the clinic. Now, Susan was aware of all this, and when she married him, she knew that she was going to be a part of this, and she would receive threats as well. While scary, like we said, she was okay with it, and she really loved John and accepted this aspect of his life. That wasn't the best part, being, threatened and everything like that, but it just came with the territory. They were very happy together. They had the freedom and money to travel on exotic trips, and they lived in a very nice neighborhood. They settled into a large brick home that was about 6,500 square feet, Stu. I mean...
Hate to see the light bill on that these days.
I know. They built it together in 1989, and it was located at 3056 Brush Creek Road in Oklahoma City. So if you're listening to this and you live at that address, 1, your house is worth a lot of money, and 2, something bad happened there.
In case the real estate agent did not let you know that when you purchased it.
Yeah, in case they glossed over that one. But yeah, that house is 5 bedrooms and 5 baths and is currently worth about $1.1 million. So back then, still nice neighborhood. I mean, that's a big home, 6,500 square feet. Now, John got along with Susan's children, helping with them with their homework and doting on them. Everyone who knew the couple described them as happy, and some even envious of the life that they lived. I mean, they're traveling. They got this nice home that they built. They got this nice blended family that they're doing really well. The stepdad, stepmom, it's all working out really well.
Everything's clicking.
Oh yeah, they got it all. They got the money, they got the looks, they got the house, they got it all. So we all know it's all going to fall apart
Well,
here pretty soon.
Are you sure?
This is a true crime podcast.
Oh, no.
Somebody's going to die.
Oh, Jesus. Not sure how it came up, but Susan decided she was going to go work for John. So, I don't know if she was like,
I'm bored.
I'm bored, I'm going to come work for you, or how that worked out. But, yeah, she ended up working there, managing the abortion clinic, and she was working there for 2 days a week.
What was she managing 2 days a week? How can you be a manager 2 days a week? Oh, you're the doctor's wife. Managing it 2 days a week.
It's quick scare quotes, managing.
Yeah. Not to talk poorly about the victim. I'm just saying that's if you're a manager.
Well,
it's named after
alert.
her. Well, it's named after her. They know how this works at this point. But yeah, she was managing it 2 days a week. I just know that the managers I've known, you're there 6-7 days a week. If it's a open that many days or 5 days a week, you're putting in the hours.
But moving on, Susan was had a very pro-choice attitude, and she had no issue with the protesters that would show up at the clinic frequently. They didn't really seem to bother because I don't think any of them really got too close to her or out of hand or anything like that. So it was just part of the daily job.
Yeah, just show up, there'd be some protesters outside, and go about your business.
Now, on February 14th, 2001, which sounds familiar for some reason, this is a day that started like any other, with the exception that it was Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's why.
It was Valentine's Day.
Happens on the same day every year.
It does. Kind of like
your
Mardi
anniversary?
Gras?
No.
Oh.
Mardi Gras does not happen on the same day every year. Don't confuse the people that aren't from here. Mardi Gras is 40 days. It's 40 days after or before Easter is whenever, because they do their 40 days of sacrifice, like something.
Lent. For the Catholics, yeah.
For the Catholics. Yeah.
Now, John and Susan exchanged cards, and John headed off to an outpatient clinic to perform one of the surgeries that he had planned for the day.
We don't exchange cards on Valentine's Day, like in the morning, like when we first get up.
No.
Most of the time, it's us running around being like, oh, shit, it's Valentine's Day.
Crap fire.
Stu's like, oh, my God, I better go get some flowers.
On my way home from work.
Yeah, because I complained last episode that he doesn't ever get me flowers. You know what he did in the meantime after I did that? He came up with some flowers.
Well, that's your 4 times a year.
Yeah. I've used them up.
They're
God.
used up.
Oh, God. We had anniversary. Now we got anniversary and birthday. It's all going to be pushed to the end of the year. I won't have flowers for months.
No, you will not.
Anyways, I just thought it was funny that they exchanged cards like first thing in the morning. Like they had they had their shit together.
Who does this?
No, I don't know.
I mean, if it's
a doctor and his wife.
If it's a weekend, I understand you're having coffee. Here's your card. But on a work day, no. Who does that?
Well, even on a weekend, they have children. Anyways, moving on from it. I just thought it was funny that they exchanged cards like first thing in the morning.
Okay. The first surgery was scheduled for 7 a.m. on Valentine's Day. And after performing that surgery, he headed off to the hospital where he was scheduled to perform a procedure later that morning at 9 a.m. Around 8:30 a.m., John was in the doctor's lounge going over the plan for the procedure with other doctors for his next surgery. Then he decided he needed to run home, but he was paid shortly after arriving at his house because the patient needed a tumor removed. John left his house, went straight back to the hospital, and performed the surgery at about 9:30 a.m. John headed home after that, and the time was estimated to be about 10:45 a.m. This time, when he walked into the house, to his horror, he found that Susan, she was in the bathroom. She's naked. She's covered in blood. So John starts performing CPR, and he calls 911 at 11:06 a.m. During his 911 call, he's frantic about his wife. He's on the phone. He's like, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God.
Yeah. Even though he's a doctor, I mean, this is shocking, coming in and finding your wife. I mean, he was just there, and then he comes back home. It's Valentine's Day, and she's bloody naked on the floor. I mean, that's shocking.
Yeah, it's not something you're expecting.
Yeah, even if you're a doctor, you're not prepared for something like that. When paramedics arrived, they found John attempting to do CPR, which was expected. He's a doctor, so he would go into that mode. There's blood everywhere, all over Susan as well as the bathroom floor. John had blood on him as well from interacting with the body to perform the CPR. The medical examiner found that the cause of death was blunt force trauma. It appeared based on the crime scene evidence and the autopsy that Susan had been strangled from behind with 2 men's ties found at the scene. She had then been hit over the head with an unknown object. They never found the object at the scene. So she's attacked from behind with the ties, and then the actual cause of death was actually being hit in the head. This blunt force trauma actually occurred on the floor after she'd fallen, and whoever did this beat her to death.
Yeah, while she's laying on the floor, I guess I could tell because the blows to her head plus the floor on the other side of her head.
And the blood splatter and all that stuff. Splatter?
I think it is spatter.
What does Dexter say?
I think it is spatter.
Again, Bravo TV and Dexter is where I get all of my information. Blood spatter expert. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Of course.
Anyway, so the police determined this is overkill because she was beaten and then again hit multiple times after the fact, after she'd already been killed. She had not been sexually assaulted during this attack or after, so that's not something that's coming into play for a motive, would be a rape or anything like that.
After Susan's murder, the police investigators started looking for suspects. Now, one of the first
That's typically what they do, Stu.
Is it?
Yeah.
How do you know? I thought the first thing they did was get some donuts.
Yes, Stu, we get it. Your donut jokes. You make the donut jokes about the cops, I think, every episode.
It's time to make the donuts. I love that commercial.
All right. Just continue on.
I will do it. The main suspect was an organization called the Army of God. Now, the group called...
Well, that sounds intense.
It does. Yeah, it was intense, and they even had their own wanted posters, and they were hanging those outside the home of the Hamiltons earlier that week, right before Susan's murder.
Yeah, not wanted posters themselves, wanted posters like the old-timey wanted posters of Dr. Hamilton.
Of himself,
yeah.
Yes.
Photoshop back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, it did have a picture of Dr. Hamilton and the words wanted by the AOG for murder and other crimes, including child abuse and assault and battery against women. Within the long text on the poster describing the crimes of Dr. Hamilton, the poster ended stating that anyone seeing this individual should notify the nearest office of the Army of God. A reward in heaven will be bestowed upon anyone contributing to bringing this murderer to justice and halting his bloody work.
So you don't even get the reward money on Earth. You got to wait. They could have at least thrown in some, earthly reward money if they are serious.
Some Starbucks gift cards.
Yeah, something.
Amazon gift cards.
Target. Well, this was like the 90s, so... Or no, 2000s.
They still had gift cards and coupons. I mean, you couldn't just get them online and digitally send them to people.
I'm just saying they were counting out a large group of the population if they were just offering heavenly rewards. They were disregarding all the people who might turn somebody in or find somebody with earthly rewards. Is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Expand your audience by offering both. So you get some heavenly rewards, you get some earthly rewards, just rewards in general.
$100 off your next Christmas shopping.
Yep. A few Hail Marys, like.
I think there was a Toys R Us still back then. They can give them $100.
Okay, well,
are
we going to name all the stores that were in business during this time period?
I mean, we're back in the 80s, and $100 would have been a lot of money back then. I know. I mean, you could have bought like 2 pairs of Vans.
$100 these days will get you a pack of water and a store bringing cheese.
Maybe, if you're lucky.
Yeah. Stu did not remember. He remembers the wedding date and stuff, but we are talking early 2000s, not the 80s, as he thinks that the $100 gift card. But $100 back in early 2000s could get you somewhere.
Getting off gift cards and back to the case. Along with the poster, The two, as in the doctor and his wife, had both received phone calls that were of a threatening nature to them leading up to this. Investigators also learned of another group that had applied for a license to protest outside of the couple's home. So to investigators, an anti-abortion activist seemed the most likely culprit who would harm Susan. So they brought in the leader of the group, and of course he denied any involvement in the crime.
While they were looking into these anti-abortion activists, they still went with the other usual suspects. They weren't like blindsided by this or had tunnel vision on just the activists. They wanted to make sure they weren't missing anything else. One being burglary gone wrong, and the other being the husband, of course, because we all know the husband always does it.
How do you know? I mean, in my case, it'd probably be the wife.
Yeah, Stuart. Every time Stu just falls asleep within 30 seconds of laying his pillow his head on the pillow. His pillow on his head. His head on the pillow.
She wants to put
I want to murder him because I'm over there thinking about all 50 million things. It takes me a solid hour to fall asleep every night. Anyways, evidence pointing to a burglary gone wrong is the missing jewelry from Susan. Susan had some fine jewelry that she had most likely taken off while she showered, and that jewelry was missing. While Susan's jewelry was missing, other signs pointing to a break-in weren't there. There had been no other break-ins in the neighborhood, which usually thieves will hit multiple homes in that area. Doesn't always occur like that, but it is a common thing to see. Say there's, you see that they'll say, oh, there were multiple break-ins in the area. They're hitting up a neighborhood. They know this neighborhood has money, and they're going for them. There were also no... What, Stu? You got something to add?
I'd be like, yeah, even if they were the first house to get hit, there would have been other houses got hit after them. Well, would there be? If they actually had to murder somebody, that would have just skipped.
I don't know. They're just saying that this is one of the things they commonly see: multiple attempted burglaries or burglaries in the neighborhood, and this wasn't happening in this neighborhood. Like they said, it's not always occurring, but it is common. There were other signs that this wasn't actually a burglary. There were no signs of forced entry into the home. The back door was left open, but there was no glass or locks broken. There was also no footprints leading in or out of the home or in the backyard leading away from the home. The other piece of evidence that made police think it was not a burglary was the way Susan was murdered. Like we mentioned before, it was overkill. This wasn't if you're robbing somebody and you come in and you don't expect anybody to be home, you find them and you kill them, you're going to be like in and out. You're not trying to hang around and leave evidence or anything like that. You're just trying to kill them, get their stuff, and go. I would assume. I'm not a burglar, but I'm assuming that's what they would want to do. So overkill was something that seemed odd to police.
While police are looking into John, it seemed pretty much impossible for him to have murdered Susan. I mean, he'd been in surgery all morning, on and off, and he didn't seem to have time to murder. He also would have
didn't fit in his schedule, Stuart. He was very busy that morning.
Well, it wasn't in his calendar.
No.
His secretary didn't have it.
Nope.
Nobody in his office had go home, murder wife, come back, perform surgery.
So, seemed not plausible for him to have done it.
No. Plus, he didn't have a phone to put it in his reminders to do. So.
All right, let's move on.
We're moving on from this.
We get it.
So he would also have to do something as shocking and brutal as murder his wife, turn around, go back to the hospital, perform surgery like nothing happened. So it just didn't seem feasible to investigate.
Yeah, that's a true psychopath if you can do something like that.
Go home, kill your wife, or kill somebody, go work like nothing ever happened, and then just leave again.
Yep.
But investigators wanting to be thorough, they decided to take a deep dive into the lives of the Hamiltons, see what was happening just below the surface, maybe even a little bit deeper.
Yeah, they wanted to see. I mean, these are the people that everybody's envious of. They've got the home, they've got the careers, they've got the money, the trips, everything. Nobody's perfect, as much as they want to pretend.
Yeah, what skeletons they got in the
closet.
Everyone's
got issues. It doesn't matter what appears on the surface.
No, it does not. So, one of the first clues that police looked into was the Valentine's Day card that John had, because he had the one that he had gotten from Susan in his pocket. Now, the card is your standard Valentine's Day card. Guy went down to the drugstore, Walgreens, CVS, whatever.
No, this is the one that Susan gave him, though.
Yeah, well.
The girl went down to the...
Guy, the girl, whoever went down to the local...
Jinx.
Jinx. Went down to the drugstore, got the card. Hallmark, shoebox, whatever the hell it is.
Super expensive, though. I always, every time I look at the back of greeting cards and see they're like $2.99, $3, I'm like, what the?
I know. Now I know why Mr. Deeds wanted to become a
greeting card?
A greeting card author or whatever they call them.
Yeah, it's like insane. I'm like, oh my God, this is like, I can't even imagine. And you know, most people throw those away anyways. So
yeah.
It's just throwing away money.
You know how they're going to start making money now? They're going to sell you the card, then you got to pay like an extra $1 to get the envelope.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to give you those envelopes for free anymore.
Yeah, they're going to make you buy the envelope
This
separate.
is a deep dive into the economy, a big card industry.
Big gift card.
Big greeting card industry, okay? It's a scam.
It is a scam. All right. Getting back to the podcast. Getting back to the murder.
The murder, not the true crime, not the real crime, the cost of greeting cards these days.
That is a real crime.
It is.
Okay. So, we were at the card was a standard greeting card that you'd buy off the shelf at any goddamn freaking drugstore.
Walgreens, CVS, name it.
And in the card...
Eckerd's back then.
Eckerd's. K&B. You don't know what a K&B is?
No, but I remember Eckerd's. I think CVS or somebody bought them. Yeah. Anyways, oh my God, we're so off track. Greeting card.
In the card...
Drug Emporium.
That Susan had given to John, that he had in his pocket the day of the murder, that being Valentine's Day 2001. The card said, I love being your wife. I love waking up with you and starting the day with your kisses.
Oh, God, I'm going to throw up.
Blah, 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 blah.
You know, the standard card.
Yes. I hate your guts, but it's Valentine's Day, so I want to stay married. I don't want to pay for a divorce. Here's your Valentine's
This is her giving him the card, though. This is the card she gave him.
Yeah, that's probably all the things she was thinking.
Okay, anyways.
The card was very basic, but what was interesting to investigators was that above the line, I love being your wife, which was the start of the card, Susan had written, in scare quotes, bunny quotations, bunny ears. Obviously, I bought this before last Monday.
Wow, very, I want to say kind of passive-aggressive because it's in a Valentine's Day card, but also aggressive.
But also, Kara loved reading this. Like,
yeah,
yes,
I thought this is so me. Obviously, I bought this before you were a dick. Yeah. The last time. Not a Dick Horton like my first husband, maybe, but
before the last time you were a Dick Horton.
Yeah.
I wonder
you really put the dick in Horton, Dick Horton.
Yeah. They're kind of like the Tim and Tim Horton up in Canada, eh?
No, go on. We can't get into Canada.
No.
1 star, they started talking about Canada during a murder investigation. We get it, people. We're back on track.
Take off, hoser, eh?
Okay. What?
That's Canadian for take off, hoser, eh?
No, I don't even know what that means.
Take off,
Stuart,
hoser.
just get back to the thing. Come on. Focus.
I'm focused. Further down on the card was more handwritten words from Susan. So she wrote the card. Now she's got notes.
There's the printed part of the card that's like, I love being your wife. I love waking up to your kisses, blah, 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 blah. But before it, there's obviously this was written before last Monday. This was purchased before last Monday. And then below, it says what, Stuart?
Below, it says, I bought my cards 2 weeks ago, so I guess maybe they don't seem as appropriate now. But I do love you. Have a good day. John's card read in his own handwriting.
That's not a good sign from a wife.
No, it is not.
She does not want you to have a good day.
She does not. Not at all. The card that John wrote to Susan in his own handwriting stated, "Bunny ears, we are important, loving, caring people together."
Important.
Important.
Yeah. Well, someone thinks highly of themselves, but okay.
They do. My life would be incomplete without you. Ending with, I signed off, I love you, John. So both cards are strange, and they pique investigators' curiosity into what the hell happened last Monday that would cause Susan to say this and John to be like a narcissistic douchebag.
How do these people have these children? The children are older at that point.
Yes.
They're grown, because let me tell you what, we have 2 under 2, and I can guarantee you we don't have time to write all this stuff or put this much thought into like passive aggressively like going after each other.
We just passively aggressively do it like while we're sleeping.
Yeah, that's all the only time we have, or during this podcast.
Yes.
Investigators began questioning friends and family about the Hamiltons' relationship. Most said things were great, the whole thing, like, oh, they have it all. But a few were privy to information that might be behind Susan's Valentine's card. A neighbor, Susan Johnston, different Susan, said that Susan was upset with John over some phone calls he had been receiving from someone. She had noticed the phone calls after John stopped answering them in front of her. Very suspicious. Suspicious, too. Very suspicious.
And spam caller.
No, it's hide it under spam, like put in the caller ID. Why would you say that, Stuart?
What? I'm saying it's probably spam.
So anyway, she confronted John about this, and he told her that it was just a client he was helping out. Susan had told the other Susan all about this the week before Valentine's Day. This was the day, like in the early 2000s, everybody was named Brittany, and so there's like a million Brittany's and stuff like that. I guess that was the name whenever Susan was born, was Susan. So there's lots of Susans. Susan did not. Now it's all going to be what? There's a lot of
Ashley Madison's.
No, Ashley was along with Brittany's. Now it's like Emma's and Scarlett, and anyways. Susan did not take John's word for it whenever she asked him, and she started looking into these phone bills.
Oh, jeez.
This is when Susan found over 100 calls from this number.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, jeez. John, what have you been doing? This is not a business relationship. Susan would find out this number actually belonged to a stripper, Stu. Not a car stripper either, like the dancing type of stripper. The exotic dancer.
So he was helping a girl put herself through college.
Stuart, shut up. Oh my God. Anyways, when Susan confronted John, he again told her he was just helping the woman out. Like Stu said, put her through college. Stuart.
What? I told you. He was helping her out.
You're an idiot. Anyways, that she was having mental health issues, even threatening suicide, and he was trying to counsel her through this as he was the woman's doctor. So he's saying she's just a client that came to my OBGYN thing, and she, expressed these thoughts to me, and I'm just trying to walk her through this
I'm her
struggle.
OBGYN, I'm her psychiatrist, I'm her general practitioner.
I'm her lover.
I slept with...
And we're going to cut that audio before Stuart gets to finish because it was terrible.
Dong.
Stuart! Oh my God. Anyways, so Susan was discussing this with John, and he's saying that he's just the woman's doctor. But John had actually met this woman at her place of business, and he had received a lap dance from her. Very professional, though. A very professional lap dance.
It was. I mean, he had to... She didn't have time to come into the office, and...
She needed to continue work, so they did a business meeting. It's not his fault that lap dancing was part of her business.
So instead of her paying him for a doctor visit, he paid her for the doctor visit.
Now, Susan...
Because they knew she needed money, and she couldn't really afford to pay for the doctor visit.
He was a generous person.
He was. I mean, he was really a nice guy.
Now, Susan was very upset and made John write a letter to the woman telling her he could no longer be her doctor and she needed to seek help someplace else. Write a letter. Now, Susan, the neighbor, told... This, again, very confusing. Susan, the neighbor, told Susan that she believed John and that he would never cheat on her. I feel like the Susan, the neighbor is a little questionable. No?
Maybe she's a patient of John's too.
Maybe so. Susan was not convinced of this, but decided to think it through before making rash decisions but she was not convinced it was an innocent relationship. You think? Do you think there's Susan?
I don't know why she would have any doubts other than anything other than a professional relationship. Investigators decided that they were going to interview the paramedics that had responded to the scene of Susan's murder. And they started asking about John's behavior. One paramedic noted that the way John had been performing CPR was a little odd. He had one hand on her chest, the other hand on her abdomen, and he was doing compressions this way. So,
anybody who's taken a basic CPR, I've taken in my career, it requires me to take CPR. I've also taken CPR at the hospital for newborns and things like that, like babies, and everyone knows, like,
and pets.
I did work at a place that boarded pets and was a doggy daycare. So I did take CPR for animals, and we all know that you put your hands on the chest. There's no abdomens involved.
No.
With CPR, and he's a doctor, so we know he has to do. It's required because I learned from Bravo. It's required that they take CPR and pass every year or whatever it is. It's a reoccurring course. It's not just one and done.
Continuing education unit.
Yes, continuing education unit. So I learned that from Bravo. So yeah, this is very strange to the paramedics on the scene that he's pushing on her abdomen, which would cause more blood, I would assume, to pump out of her.
Maybe he thought she had gas.
Stuart! Oh my God.
And was trying to help her pass that gas.
Stuart, shut up. Now, the paramedic also said it did not appear that John had tried mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Susan's face was very bloody and swollen. If John had attempted this, he would have blood on his face as well.
All of this is very odd to investigators. But then again, John still had an alibi. He was in and out of surgery all morning long. After police are called to the Hamilton residence, John was taken in for questioning that day. Partly to question him, but also police felt they were trying to keep him safe since there had been threats from the Army of God.
The Army of God.
AOG.
That sounds like a rock album. Army of God.
Yeah,
by Slayer.
Maybe, possibly.
I don't know anything about Slayer, but Stu certainly does, and he scares me with their music.
Or Megadeth.
Yes.
I did go see Megadeth the other couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, you did. I chose to stay home. I used the newborn baby as an excuse, but honestly, watching a cricket would have been an excuse for me to not go to that concert.
I can't even believe you didn't want to go see Megadeth with me. But anyway.
You did go see Garth Brooks with me, though.
I did.
That was awesome. That's a great concert. If you're a fan of country music, go see Garth Brooks. I've also seen George Strait, not with Stu, but I have seen George Strait.
I thought we saw George Strait.
No.
Or was it Garth Brooks?
I swear to God,
they're both
Stuart,
like the same person.
You will get the fuck out of this house. You will die.
Garth Brooks, George Strait, Willie
Megadeth, AC/DC, tomato,
potato.
potato. Let's throw the whole thing off. Is that the words? Back on track. So the police thought the Army of God was coming after the Hamilton, so they thought that they needed to keep John safe because they had already attacked Susan. During this time, his clothes and shoes were bagged for evidence and would later be processed by forensic scientists. John's behavior was strange while in the interview room. He kept checking his arm and shoulder like it had been injured. He also had scratch marks on his hands and arms. Those were documented by police as well. John said this was from him hitting his hands and head on the police car divider. Like when he was upset, he was banging his head and his hands and everything. This was another odd behavior of John while riding in the back of the police car. He was not handcuffed or anything, but he began hitting his head and his hands on the divider screen. Like it was just strange. Like they're saying, why are you doing this? You're not handcuffed or anything. I don't understand what's going on.
Investigators began digging deeper into the timeline that John had provided them. Originally, he said that he had run home but was paid shortly after so that he had to head back to the hospital for his 9 a.m. surgery.
Yeah, if you'll remember when we went through the timeline earlier, it was there was a lot of back and forth, going to different surgeries, going to different hospitals, going home, all that stuff. So he's going back through all of this with the police.
Yeah, he had a 7 a.m. that he was there for. And then at 8:30, he was supposedly in the doctor's lounge discussing the next surgery with the other doctors.
Yeah.
And then somehow between 8:30 when he was in the doctor's lounge and his 9 o'clock appointment, he decides he's going to run home. Who runs home? He's got
in the
50.
Little 30-minute.
I mean, unless he lives 5 minutes from the hospital. He's in the doctor's lounge at 8:30 talking to other doctors. It's probably taken 15 minutes to discuss the next procedure. So he's got 15 minutes between 8:45 to 9 o'clock for his next surgery, and he's like, oh, I'm going to run home. So he gets home, he's like, oh, but I got paged. Of course you got paged. You got a 9 a.m. freaking surgery, dude.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, and that's what police were thinking as well. So they started questioning the nurses and other staff that were there for the surgery, and they found out that 9 a.m. surgery that he was supposed to be there, so with the 8:30 to 9 a.m. that he was saying that he had, that surgery didn't actually start till 9:40 a.m. because John was missing during that time.
Dum, 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 dum.
The woman was being put under anesthesia when they realized he was not there, so they frantically paged him. I find that I'm a little concerned about that. I feel like you should make sure everybody's present before you start putting me under. You know, like make sure everybody's there. You know, just take a head count, quick around the room. Like, hey, Doctor Hamilton here.
Nurses, anesthesiologists.
Yeah, just a quick like
doctor.
They do it in kindergarten.
Doctor,
Let's do it in
doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor. No.
They do it in kindergarten. Let's do it whenever I'm about to go under anesthesia. So with this information, this time frame has blown up. Like they have a whole new situation going on, and they have a whole new suspect to focus in on besides the AOG, Army of God.
So the case was cracked wide open?
It was cracked wide open, Stu.
Just like in the last episode?
Yeah.
Cracked wide open?
Cracked wide open in a different sense, though. Wait, cracked wide open. Yes, wide open spaces, wide open lanes, Dixie Chicks, you know, the whole 9 yards.
Earl's gotta die.
Yep, he does.
Now, John's clothing was processed at the lab, and it was found that on his shoe was a very tiny and visible to the naked eye blood spatter.
Not splatter.
Not splatter.
I feel like we've had this conversation before.
We did earlier this episode.
Okay, no, like in time, but okay.
The blood spatter expert determined that this was only able to get on his shoe at the angle that it was there if it had been flying from a blood source. This indicated that John had been there when Susan was being beaten, and it could not have occurred just by picking up the head and it hitting on the floor, like if he had picked her head up and then accidentally dropped it.
Well, not even accident, like you probably wouldn't want to drop somebody that's like bleeding to death, but if he'd picked her up and then it even had been set down or something,
what if she coughed blood? It could have flown out of her mouth.
Okay, you're not a blood spatter expert, and that didn't come up, Stuart. Okay, let's not try to.
I'm just saying.
Let's not improv on the expertise of the blood spatter expert.
Maybe it wasn't John.
Okay, all right. Now, during this time, the chance of it being a burglary gone wrong had almost completely diminished because they're still looking into this. They're investigating all options: the Army of God, burglary, and the husband. The fine jewelry that was missing was found by a friend of Susan's in her underwear drawer, rolled up in a pair of underwear, which was strange to police because they're wondering, did someone take the jewelry from her and hide it like that so that it would appear to be stolen but not actually be stolen? And according to Susan's friend, she was very meticulous and would never roll up her jewelry in her underwear. Now, Stu, you have some feelings on this situation.
I have some strong feelings.
He does have strong feelings. I've had
I'm
to rein him back in.
If somebody is going to murder somebody and try to make it look like a burglary, you don't keep the things that you are trying to make look like
You don't put them in the underwear drawer rolled up.
No.
You get rid of them completely.
flush
You
them down the
dedicate
toilet.
yourself. You say, I'm putting them in the dumpster. I'm putting them in the river. I'm putting them someplace. I'm not putting them in the underwear drawer. But you're saying that whoever murdered her was being selfish and wanted to
Murder
sell
her and then possibly pawn the items.
because they were expensive.
Because they were expensive items. I'm like, no. Is $20,000 worth the rest of your life in jail? Or the death penalty?
Yeah, because you could have taken the
50,000,
jewelry with you
60,000?
instead of putting it in the underwear drawer. You could have taken it with you to the hospital and then disposed of it in
Whatever.
the dumpster or wherever, or taken and dropping it off after
You got to make
left
sure
the
that
hospital.
shit never gets found again.
Yeah, and so whoever
Not
it
that
is,
we're trying to implicate you, John, or nothing like that. Or Susan's friend Susan, or Susan's friend that said that she was meticulous.
her other friend Susan, and
that
then
would
her other
never
friend
hide
Susan,
it in the
because they're all named Susan.
in the drawers drawer.
Anyway, so the friend said she would never do this, and with the burglary lead drying up altogether, their attention focused back towards the doctor because the Army of God's not panning out, the burglary situation's not panning out, but this strange situation with the doctor, with the delayed surgery, he's missing, with the weird Valentine's card, everything. Police searched the home and found a Valentine's like bear, some candy, and also a card. And then they also found within John's Jaguar a red envelope that had $3,395 in it. This was another Valentine's card. This is like, they're buying a lot of Valentine's cards. I don't know what's happening here. Now, inside the car, they also found traces of blood on the steering wheel and seat, Susan's hair, and a piece of her flesh on the floor of the car. This guy is not meticulous for being a doctor. They then searched John's locker at the hospital and found traces of blood. So obviously he had been around Susan when she was bleeding, even had hair and skin, flesh, been in his car, been to the hospital in this time. He's not just at the house just finding this. This is
Allegedly.
damning. This is damning evidence.
Allegedly.
Now, because of this, John was charged with first-degree murder, and his trial began in December of 2001. During the trial, John had plenty of support from his coworkers to former patients to people in the community. He was well-loved, well-liked, and trusted in the community. Nobody could believe this sweet, mild-mannered doctor could kill his wife that he doted on so much. Now, during the trial, it was revealed that John was calling Alina Aguirre, I probably pronounced that wrong. She was the stripper, the exotic dancer, and he was calling her 10 times a day. Alina denied having an affair with John and told the jury that she had only gotten free antidepressants from him as she could not afford them on her own. So along with what Stu had said, that's what Stu had gone with.
Just helping a beauty college girl get through her semesters.
You're going to get so many one-star reviews for such things.
Probably will. I just got to take the heat off you, baby. That's what I do.
However, Alina did tell the prosecution that she thought he was trying to work up the courage to ask her out. This was not a, let's get her antidepressants, let's help this girl out. This was trying to build a relationship so that he could proposition her or ask her out or whatever to start having an affair. The prosecution painted this as not a doctor wanting to help a patient, but a man infatuated with this woman and using his practice as a way to interact with her. So he's even worse than just a guy cheating on his wife. He's actually using his moniker as a doctor to go after this woman.
Was he, though?
Yes, Stuart, it sounds like it, yes.
It sounds like he was just trying to help, do no harm.
Stuart, shut up.
Susan's daughter, Angela, also testified in court that her mother was upset the night before she was murdered. She was very sad and she was crying. She also stated that she was scared and felt alone being married to John. Angela was pretty much very shocked because it did not sound like her mom at all, who was normally very confident and sure of herself. Susan's mother also testified that while Susan loved John, she felt smothered by the relationship. They never seemed to be apart. John called Susan multiple times a day, and they had lunch together frequently.
Well, I mean, outside. I mean, what else is she going to do?
I don't know.
She's only managing the abortion clinic 2 days a week, Stuart. She's a 2-day-a-week manager.
She could be shopping, doing things. They
Yeah.
could be discussing their vacation plans over lunch.
Probably. With all their money that they have.
That's what I would do. It was also revealed in court that this was not the first time that Susan had been upset with John. In December, just 2 months before her death, Susan had gotten so mad at John that she threatened to leave him. Susan found out that John had been giving his son money, paying for car repairs, blah, 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 all kinds of other stuff without telling Susan. Susan felt betrayed as John had lied to her and actually asked him to move out.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, yes, it's John's son, but they're married. They've been married a long time. You can't just, this is a grown child. You do have to discuss what are the levels we're going to assist and help out with the child. What is the kid doing? You know, it's a lot of aspects going into that. But Susan and John were able to move on from this situation. And right after that, the whole stripper incident came up. But, you know, she's thinking about it and everything like that. But at this point, she might be actually ready to leave John after all these years of being married. Between, I guess, they've had issues in the past, and then now the stripper is a big problem.
Guy's just helping his son out. He's helping a stripper out with beauty
He's just
college.
a helpful person.
He's just a helpful
He's
person.
a good guy. He's a saint.
I don't know why Susan's so upset.
Saint John.
Saint John.
Yeah.
The Great. Prosecutors painted a picture of John arriving home to give Susan her Valentine's card in between surgeries. This is where Susan gives him the card with a handwritten message and threatens to leave John. John became so enraged that he strangled Susan.
Yeah, you don't give that card and not add a little bit of...
Little pep.
Yeah, little like,
step.
I want to leave you.
You son of a bitch.
Yes, son of a bitch.
In his rage, he then bludgeons her and beats her head on the ground. He then attempts to clean up the crime scene because they had found a white rag and cleaning supplies near Susan's body, but he received the page from the hospital.
And so, God knows that these men are not trying to clean unless they got to clean up a crime scene.
No,
am I right, ladies?
We are not. He then takes the item he used to bludgeon Susan, wraps it up, takes it with him in his car, and this is why the police believe there's a piece of Susan's flesh in the car. He disposes of the murder weapon along the way to the hospital. This is what the police are thinking.
The prosecution, Stu.
Prosecution. Squeeze me. Prosecution believed the murder weapon to be a statue that was missing from the bathroom. This is
how you know they're rich, because they have statues in their bathroom.
I know, right?
It's like
who has a statue in the bathroom?
Yeah, that's the next level.
I mean, everybody may or may not have a picture
or a knickknack, but a statue.
You know, please. I mean, my aim is to keep this bathroom clean. Your aim would help, or something like that.
Oh my God!
Got some signage
was
in the
that
bathroom.
a T-shirt or that's a plaque?
That's a signage that you put in the bathroom. Or something along
Notice
those
our
lines.
ool, or please enjoy our ool. Notice there's no P in it.
Exactly.
For the pull.
Exactly. But
Live,
a
laugh,
statue,
love. We love a cliche sign down here in the South.
But a statue in your bathroom, that's next level.
That's
shit.
next level. Yep.
And the reason that we know it's next level is because the housekeeper said that the statue is missing.
Of course they have a housekeeper.
Of course they have a housekeeper. That is next level too. He then makes it to the hospital, scrubs into surgery, washing away all the evidence on his hands. He then returns home and calls police. He originally told the police that he arrived between 10:30 and 10:45, but his call to 911 did not occur until 11:06. He claims that during this time he was trying to resuscitate her. The murder weapon obviously was never recovered. The motive behind the murder was a wife that was about to leave and a husband who was obsessed with her. If he couldn't have her, nobody could.
And it would also flaw his image of being the perfect doctor, that whole, image of the doctor's wife, everything. Because the community saw them as the perfect couple. They had everything going for them, the trips, the house, the family. They had seemed to master it all, and now this is all falling apart.
Well, this guy's an idiot. If he did commit the crime.
Anyways, the whole thing about him arriving between 10:30 and 10:45 a.m. and not calling until 11:06 a.m., that's what, 21 minutes? If someone's dying in front of you, I guarantee 10 seconds feels like 2 hours if you're trying to save somebody that you love, you know? It's not like that short of 21 minutes. I mean, good God, I could clean the kitchen in that amount of time. That's insane. The defense team needed to argue against a strong circumstantial case. They explained the scratches by stating that they had not found skin cells under Susan's nails belonging to John, and this would be something that they would have looked for. They then brought John to the stand to explain his side of the story. He testified that they had ended the fight about the stripper and were good again. Of course, anything about a stripper, you know, it's all good. They even agreed to start therapy together. John then explained his tardiness to the surgery, saying that he was told that the surgery scheduled before his was running 30 minutes late. So if you'll remember, his surgery was scheduled at 9 a.m., and they didn't start till 9:40 a.m. It's because he was told that the surgery before his was scheduled or was running 30 minutes behind. So he thought he had time to run home and then exchange Valentine's cards with Susan. He explained the hairs and flesh in his car by saying that he had moved his car while waiting for the paramedics so they could access the driveway. So he's giving CPR to Susan and I guess runs down, moves his vehicle, is what he's saying, so that the paramedics can access the driveway and then go back up and continue CPR.
Oh, John, that just sounds sketchy as...
As what?
Fuck.
Oh, God. Stuart. Now, the blood on his shoe, they explained away saying it had gotten there by whenever John was actually performing the CPR, which the blood spatter expert said that was not possible. During cross-examination, the blood spatter expert testified and said that he found additional blood inside the cuff of the shirt of John. He testified that the only way that blood could have gotten there was when John Hamilton beating Susan and it traveling into his sleeve. He couldn't do it with the CPR, even with him pushing on the abdomen like John was doing, which was totally not correct. Like we said, this was cross-examination. So this was the defense's own blood spatter expert saying that he had blood in the cuff of his shirt. Now, this was a bombshell because the defense's own expert was testifying against the defendant. This was proving their whole point. Like, they were questioning him and they got him to admit that this couldn't have come into his cuff unless he was actually bludgeoning or beating Susan at the time. The defense tried to backtrack and again say this happened during CPR and everything like that, but nobody was buying it. The defense closed by telling the jury that the police did not look into the anti-abortion activists, the AOGs do, Army of God.
Yeah,
enough.
You know me.
Yeah. Anyways, enough, and that they were most likely the culprits. It took just 2 hours for the jury to reach a verdict of guilty. He was sentenced to life without parole. The jury even told the judge they wanted John to know that they wished they had the death penalty as an option, but not just life without parole. So they wanted to put this guy to death because they believed 100% that he did this to Susan.
Get a rope. Nice horsehair rope.
What?
That's what they say in the old West movies. Get a rope. Get a nice horsehair rope.
Okay.
Hang them high.
Okay, and I've heard hang them high. I don't know what the other stuff you're saying. I don't know. John appealed his case, and it made it all the way to the Supreme Court, but was ultimately denied. John, to this day, proclaims his innocence.
Well, he must be innocent then.
Okay, Stu said it, so it's true.
Well, John said it, so it's true.
Anyways. All right, so that is our episode out of Oklahoma. Stu, do you have anything you would like to add tonight? Do you have any thoughts or feelings besides you think John is innocent?
I didn't say I thought he was
Stu
innocent.
is like lying. He knows John is.
He's guilty as fuck.
Yeah.
He's a sorry sack of shit.
Anyways.
And he deserves to be fried.
Okay.
Old Sparky, horsehair, the gallows. Something.
Okay, anyways, but he's not. He's spending life without parole, so.
Reading a nice library book from the library prison.
Yep.
All right. So on that note, Stuart, do you have, if anybody can tell, should we just address that the audio might be a little different, Stu?
You may, if you
We
so
may.
desire.
Okay. Stuart was ill prepared when we recorded these prior, so we're adding in the Y'all Need Jesus, and I'm currently coming off of an illness and my throat's a little rusty. So we figured you guys would notice that there's a change in audio. So we might as well just address the elephant in the room. And I'm not talking about Stuart.
Wow. How about the 800-pound gorilla?
Also you. I can't even laugh because my throat is so. This has been like the illness that will not go away. Anyway, and it's not COVID. I'm on antibiotics and stuff. It's just a nightmare. Anyways, but besides that, Stuart, do you have a Y'all Need Jesus?
Of course I do. That's why we're
Okay.
here.
Yep. Okay. So let's go ahead and do Y'all Need Jesus.
All right. Florida or not Florida. Alleged stoner stopped after wild car chase. Whips out license from Legoland.
Oh, that's Florida. Isn't Legoland in Florida?
I think there is one. I think there's one in California too, though.
Oh, well, it could be either or.
Legomania. A UK driver.
Oh,
Yes.
God.
So we have Florida people all the way over in the UK as well. There's idiots everywhere.
There's idiots everywhere.
He was arrested for reckless driving. He had officers in stitches after he produced a license from Legoland. In a story from March 15th, 2022, the driver was pursued from Bexley to Isle of Sheppey, I guess they pronounce it, and arrested for a multitude of offenses last week.
You know, I really expect more from the British because of the accent. And here they are just acting like basic bitch Florida people.
Some silly gits,
Yeah.
or as they call
Gits?
them.
Is that what it is?
I believe they call
I
them
hope that's not
gits.
offensive.
No, I think they say it. Well, it might be. I might have just really screwed up.
Well,
I
they
don't
also say the C-U-N-T word a lot, too.
know. Yeah, they do. Like it's just a crappy day
Yep.
in that context, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. Go on.
I am going on. According to a tweet by Kent Police, they apprehended a 21-year-old motorist in February following an epic chase. The fiasco began after officers attempted to pull over an Audi A7 that they had observed maneuvering recklessly all over the road.
Oh, an Audi A7. That's a nice car.
Yeah, it is. Kind of snazzy.
That sounds like a spoiled brat if he's 20. What was he, 21?
21 driving an Audi A7.
Yeah.
Well, they're a little bit cheaper over there, too. So.
I don't think they're that much cheaper.
Well, okay. The driver refused to pull over, resulting in a 35-mile chase that took them from southeast London to
Was
Kent.
that miles or kilometers to him?
Well, the story says miles, so they were forced to call in a helicopter even to aid in the pursuit. Eventually, the pursuing officers caught up with the knucklehead in Minster, Kent, after he ran out of gas. Police found a large stash of Mary Jane in his car. That'd be marijuana
Okay.
there, Kara.
I just looked up apparently because I was trying to think back when we were in London. In Australia they use the kilometers, but actually I think in the UK they use the miles.
I have
they
no
use
idea.
miles.
This could be that whole Valdosta thing again. Go ahead, screw up the miles and
I
kilometers.
probably am, and I'm going to get a letter. We got a letter.
Oh, we got a letter. When the officers asked the what is it?
The who,
Sheerness native. I guess he's from a town called Sheerness.
Okay.
For his documentation, he brandished a fake license that he received from Legoland
Oh, God.
in Windsor as a kid in 2003. This award is given to children who pass the theme park's driving test, which entails using a brick-built electric car to navigate traffic lights, roundabouts, Lego policemen, and even a speed camera.
Well, that sounds
Per the
pretty
site.
more difficult than a regular driver's license. My mom just signed off and said I did the hours, and I got a license. I didn't even have to go take a test.
And that's why your car has all kinds of dents
No,
in
it
it.
doesn't. That's a lie.
Because you bang in all kinds of shit.
I'll try to run over you.
The cops joked in the tweet that the Legoland license was not the reason for the driver's dangerous driving. It was the large amount of cannabis. Along with not having a bona fide driver's license, the Lego maniac also lacked insurance. He was subsequently arrested at the scene on suspicion of dangerous driving, failing to stop, possession of a Class B drug, driving with no insurance, driving with no license, per a police spokesman. He was reportedly released on bail until September 1, 2022. So, if you know who this fella is, he's a buddy of yours. He's
He
out
made
there
it to-
loose.
He made it to the podcast for
He
the
did.
Y'all Need Jesus.
Yes, from across the pond, as the kids are saying.
So they really weren't even upset about the driver's license. They were like, you know what? I did that ride when I was a kid. It trains you pretty well. It was all the drugs.
You think?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that was a problem. Probably lack of insurance.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Stuart. I'm so glad you did all that research to
You
get
are
us
welcome.
we did all this work to go back and add that in. All right. So you have anything else to add, Stuart?
Do you want me to add
No,
anything?
I think we're done. We're
done all that I can, all that I should do.
Yeah, just like several weeks late, but yeah, you added it in. We just wanted to also add that we have started up our Patreon, so you can find that at patreon.com/blessthismesspodcast if you want to throw us some support. Some other ways you can support us: leave a review on iTunes, follow us on the Facebooks, like us on the Instagrams, and I think that's it. So I guess we will see you next time. Bye, everyone. Say bye, Stu.
Bye, Stu.
Don't you know it's bad luck to be superstitious, but nothing else is working